Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're tapping into the streets of Chicago, and we're going to be talking about a 2009 murder when members of the Latin Kings Crown Town brutally killed a 15-year-old teen and set him on fire afterwards. Now, the Latin Kings are one of the most well-known gangs throughout the city of Chicago, and they are known to control different sections. By 1987, the Latin Kings would take control of 53rd and Albany, and this section will be known as Crown Town, and also the Lynch Mob. Now, although birthed on 53rd and Albany, Crown Town would extend from 51st and Western to 59th and Pulaski, with different Latin King factions like the Dog Pound, Camp Zone, Sack Town, 5-8 Homicide, and a few other sets. Now, Crown Town controls a lot of territory and is one of the larger sets. Also, since the 80s, the Latin Kings were always cool with a predominantly white gang known as the 12th Street Players. Both gangs shared the same common enemies like Gangster 2-6s, Imperial Gangsters, and the 2-2 Boys, and other gangs. But even with allies, things can go bad from time to time. And in late 2000s, we will see the life of a 12th Street Player affiliate be taken. On May 1st, 2009, Alex Ariano and a few females, which included his girlfriend, Sabrina Arce, they were all leaving a party nearby. Now, they were headed back to a home on 53rd and Albany, which was deep in the Latin Kings Lynch Mob neighborhood. While walking, two 15-year-old Latin Kings pulled up on bikes, which were Giovanni Martinez and Eric Ortiz. They would step to Alex and ask him first about his haircut, which was cut in a shag similar to a lot of other Latin Kings. So they then asked him where he was from, but Alex didn't respond. So next, they told Alex to throw up the King set. He didn't respond. Then they told him to lift up his t-shirt to see if he had any gang tattoos, whether it be a Latin King or any rival tattoos. When they saw that he didn't have any tattoos, they left him alone, but they told him, be careful. And Ortiz and Martinez then rode off on their bikes. So Alex and the girls continued to walk after the confrontation. But moments later, a Mustang would pull up with a group of Latin Kings inside, which included Ortiz and Martinez, who were also in the car along with Edgar Silva, Elisa Campo, and 27-year-old Luis Macedo. Now, Luis, Campo, Martinez, and Ortiz would all hop out the car while Edgar would stay behind the wheel. Luis would step up to Alex and ask him where he was from, but once again, Alex would not respond. That's when one of the Latin King members went to the car and grabbed a baseball bat, then handed it to Luis. And Luis took the baseball bat and hit Alex directly in the head. As Alex fell to the ground, the Latin King members started punching and stomping on him, and Luis continued to hit him with the baseball bat. But somehow in the scuffle, Alex was able to get to his feet, and he immediately started running, and the Kings chased after him. Edgar Silva would follow behind the group in the Mustang and then ram into Alex, causing him to flip over the hood and fall to the ground. But although hurt, Alex was able to once again get to his feet. He would run to a nearby vacant house. And this is where he was attacked once again by the Latin Kings. A nearby neighbor would see the assault happening and call the police. And that's when Ortiz and Martinez would drag Alex into the vacant house gangway. They would continue to beat and stomp on him. But Martinez would make the decision to pull out his gun and shoot Alex directly in the back of the head, killing him. Both Ortiz and Martinez would flee the scene. Now, because that neighbor had called the police, patrol officers would spot Martinez running down 54th Street holding his side. And in return, Martinez would take off running, going in the opposite direction to get away from the police. Martinez would then take the gun that he had on him and toss it over a nearby fence. But eventually, officers were able to detain Martinez and arrest him and retrieve the gun that he tossed over the fence. Now, sometime later that day, Latin King member Luis and the other Latin Kings would decide to dispose of Alex's body. And that's when they would take the next step, and they would set his body on fire. Now, as the day went on and Alex did not come back home, his family would grow concerned. And on Friday morning, they would attempt to file a missing persons report, but it would be too soon. So next, they would hang up flyers around the neighborhood. But on Saturday morning, they would receive a phone call from an unknown female stating that Alex's body was on the 3000 block of West 54th Place. And at around 12 noon that same day, police officers would find Alex's body burnt beyond recognition. Detectives will also begin their investigation, in which they would find shell casings near the body. And these shell casings would match the gun that officers recovered from Martinez the day prior.
Investigators say the burned body found on the southwest side was a Chicago teenager. An autopsy today reveals 15-year-old Alex Ariano died of a gunshot wound.
Ariano's body was found in between two buildings yesterday.
Karen and Ravi, the body is burned beyond recognition. The family is spared having to view the body, but are now gathering dental records to confirm the identity.
And this would lead to Giovanni Martinez being charged with the murder of Alex. Eventually, Luis would find out that Martinez had been arrested. So then he would flee the country and head to Mexico. Several months would pass by, and police would tie Eric Ortiz to this murder, and he would be arrested. And also, Edgar Silva and Alisa Campo would also be arrested. Authorities would continue to look for Luis, but eventually he would be put on the FBI's most wanted list.
Most wanted fugitive Luis Macedo. Macedo, a member of the Latin King street gang, is the alleged leader in the murder of a 15-year-old boy in Chicago 7 years ago this month. Macedo, who is sometimes called Yeye, has tattoos on his body, neck, arms, and hands.
There are people who know his current whereabouts, and they know that the right thing to do is come forward to law enforcement.
Now, the family of Alex would tell authorities that Alex had no gang ties, but detectives would soon discover Alex's MySpace, which would show him throwing up gang signs. A few years would pass by, and in 2013, the Latin King members would be headed to court. Alisa Campos and Edgar Silva would both plead guilty to murder, and Campos will receive a 23-year sentence, and Edgar Silva will receive a 20-year sentence. Now, Ortiz and Martinez trial will also begin, and during their trial, the two females that was with Alex would take the stand, and they both would testify and identify that Eric Ortiz and Martinez were there amongst the attackers that attacked Alex. But Eric Ortiz would testify that Alex had been warned about being in the Latin King neighborhood, but he chose to ignore this warning. He would go on to also admit that he was with the group that attacked Alex, but that he had nothing to do with the actual murder. He did tell Martinez to not shoot Alex, but the jury did not buy this story whatsoever. And eventually, Eric Ortiz would be found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 60 years of prison. But because he was 15 years old at the time, he would later be resentenced to 28 years. Giovanni Martinez, who was the actual shooter, would be found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 75 years in prison. But like Ortiz, he was only 15 years old at the time of the murder, and he would later be resentenced and only serving 33 years in prison. It would be 8 years later, in 2017, when police would finally arrest and find Luis Macedo, who started a new life in Mexico. Police would find out that he started a new family and would have 3 children and was now a working man who worked as a barber. The FBI would then deport him back to Chicago so he can face his consequences. Once there, he would officially be charged with the murder of Alex Ariano. Now, Luis's public defender would tell the judge that Luis was no longer a gang member and he has left that life far behind him. And his only focus now is to raise his children. The judge would hold Luis on a $10 million bail. And as of right now today, Luis Macedo is still awaiting trial for this murder. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I will see y'all next time.